Welcome back to episode 2 of Two Ball, Two Bowl, sports takes you can take to the bank. I'm Marshon Parker.
And I'm Nathan Tomlin.
And we are welcoming you back again to episode 2. If you were here for the first episode, you kind of know where we are, but for those who didn't have the opportunity to join us, I want to give a refresher on where we are at now and where we're going. Episode 1, we talked about the AFC side, and what do I mean the AFC side? What we're doing is we're breaking down a tournament, an all-time NFL tournament, in which we're doing the best quarterback, best running back, 2 best receivers, best tight end for each team. We will also move to a defensive side as well, in which we break down specific parts of the defense. That'll come in the future. Ultimately, with us doing a tournament style, where we have division winners all the way down to the Super Bowl winner, where then we just describe who has the best all-time unit, right?
Absolutely.
Pause.
Absolutely.
Last weekend we did AFC. This week we are doing NFC, and we're going to start it out in the NFC West. And not only are we going to start in the NFC West, but we're going to start with my favorite team, the 49ers. And for me, this was hard, man. And it was hard because...
That's funny, because for me it was easy.
It was,
but I don't have the nostalgia.
You don't have the nostalgia kind of, tugging at your heartstring. I paused now, so, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go ahead and do this, all right? I'm going to go to the easy positions first.
Yeah.
All right? At least easy for me.
I think it should be easy for me.
Receivers, Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens. Mm-hmm. All right? Tight end, might surprise you, George Kittle. Mm-hmm. I will say this, though. It was worth noting, I was really close to picking Brent Jones. I'm old enough to remember on 3rd and 8, Brent Jones was going to get you a first down.
Yeah.
Steve Young was going to do that little play-action rollout. Brent Jones was going to always be open. He was going to get you a good 12, 13 yards. And that dude took the hardest hits I ever seen. It was like he was just, the linebackers just keyed off on him every time. Quarterback. My head says Joe Montana. My heart says Steve Young.
Oh, God, you can't do that.
So listen, okay, hear me out on this. Hear me out on this. I'm picking Joe Montana.
Okay.
I'm picking Joe Montana. But I'm a Steve Young stan, all right? I truly believe that Steve Young was more talented. I also think Joe Montana, didn't have the burden of having to follow Joe Montana.
Fair.
So that's something to think about. But Joe Montana, running back, I'm going to tell you, and he's one of my top favorite 49ers, is Frank Gore. But I'm telling you right now, if this was 2 years in the future, I would have said CMC.
Okay.
It's just I can't. It hasn't even been 2 full years.
Yeah.
Really, it's been a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were having this conversation in 2026, I would pick CMC because I'm looking at this team and I'm looking like I got Montana at quarterback, I got Jerry Rice, T.O., Kittle. I'm like, man, this would be one heck of a West Coast offense with CMC in there. But so I went Joe Montana, Frank Gore, Jerry Rice, T.O., and Greg Kittle. George Kittle. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I had 4 of the same. Joe Montana. I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can like someone better, but I mean, come on, Joe Montana was a better quarterback. I went obviously Rice and T.O. Those were no-brainers. I went George Kittle as well.
Okay, good.
But actually, for me, it was more between George Kittle and Vernon Davis. But Vernon Davis didn't have as many good years.
He was more talented.
Vernon Davis is one of the most physically gifted athletes to ever play football.
Yes.
I mean, obviously. And shout out winning Super Bowl in the Broncos.
That's right.
Sent him off with a ring. But, Vernon Davis only had a few years where he was really elite. George Kittle, every year that he's healthy, has made a Pro Bowl. Yes. He's one of the best blocking, if not the best blocking tight end in the game today.
Thank you for bringing that up.
So a lot of times when I'm looking at players, I'm trying to compare them across eras. Stats don't do justice because any guys, especially receivers and tight ends, are going to have better stats now.
Yes.
With the exception of Jerry Rice. Everybody else can have better stats now than they did in the past. So you got to kind of look at their contemporaries. And George Kittle is every single year. It's Kittle and Kelsey.
Yeah.
And now Mark Andrews has thrown himself into the mix. And Kelsey probably on the decline list, still top 3 tight end, easy. And running back, I went with Roger Craig actually. And part of that is maybe because of the team success had a lot to do with that too. But I think he was a very good running back, and I think he was very underrated because of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. Right, when you think of the 49ers of the '80s, it's Montana, Rice, and Walsh.
Correct.
And then the catch by Clark.
Yeah.
You don't think of anything else on the 49ers in the '80s if you're not a 49er fan. The general football fan, when you think of the 49ers in the '80s, that's what you think about. But Roger Craig, to me, I mean, was it. But, I mean, I can see you going with Frank Gore. He was a very good running back for a very long time.
Yes.
And the fact that he had the career that he had, it's crazy because I can't ever really think of where I was like, oh, Frank Gore's the top 3-4 running back in the league, to me.
I understand.
Now, you may think different because you're a 49er fan, but to me, I was never like, he was never top 3 or 4, but he was always really good. Mm-hmm. And he was just really good for so long. It seemed like 12 years where every year, he never got hurt, it seemed like.
Not in NFL, in college.
Yes,
tore his knees up.
And so I went with Craig, but I was between Craig and Gore.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying about CMC. I think CMC is the most talented.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I don't think in 2 more years you can put him above unless he has over 20 total touchdowns in consecutive years.
Well, I'm speculating he's going to have the thing Frank Gore didn't have, and that's the Super Bowl.
Gotcha. Even if he wins the Super Bowl, I'm not going to put him there unless he has seasons that are just like where he's MVP, which he was this year. So if he has a couple more years exactly like this,
yes,
then I can maybe see the argument, because then you're talking about 3 years in a row where he is a top 5 MVP vote getter at running back in a league that running backs don't win it.
No, they're going to change
unless they. I mean, Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards and wasn't even top 5. So
that was criminal.
Yes. So I'm fine I'm fine switching my running back to Gore. But I do think Craig had. I mean, he was perfect for that offense to me. Like you talked about the perfect West Coast offense.
Yeah.
Well, if you want West Coast offense, you put Craig in there instead of Gore. I think he's better for that offense.
He'd be third on that list. So
I mean, CMC is definitely above. Who was the
number 2? Now, okay.
Are you going to put Ricky Waters as the number 2?
I'm probably the biggest Ricky Waters fan that you will meet.
And he didn't play long enough on the 49ers.
He didn't play long enough on the 49ers, and he played 4 years on the Niners. But the thing about Ricky Waters is he just like Christian McCaffrey. So Roger Craig was a good receiver out of the backfield, and that's a good distinction to make, which was different
especially back then.
That was like you didn't see
a route runner too, not
but
just
CMC and Ricky Waters. Like Ricky Waters, legit, his sophomore year was a starting receiver on Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. They literally could have been. They could have come into the league and been receivers. Mm-hmm. So that in itself is a little different. Now, I may also have a little bit of sour taste in my mouth from the latter end of Roger Craig's run with the Niners. I mean, by the time I was a kid, but by the time he left, it was more like good riddance. I don't know if you know this, but when the last games he had, the actual last game he had with the Niners, he had a huge fumble in the playoffs. Yeah. And I mean, you got to respect the fact he was the first thousand, running back. I think the only ones who have done it since are Marshall Falk and CMC.
LT and the 100 catches.
Yeah,
100 catches.
Yeah. Dang that guy, but I look at it and I just feel like just evaluate all of them. Mm-hmm. Roger Craig. Now listen, Roger Craig had to crawl for CMC and Ricky Waters and guys like that to run. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I just look at it and I say, okay, they're a better version.
Yeah, but they, again, we're talking about just on the 49ers here, right? So
and that's why I had to go with Frank Gore. Frank Gore, the biggest. So Frank Gore and Patrick Willis, the thing that makes me the saddest in terms of their career is that a bulk of their prime, the Niners are terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here watching because I'm a Niner fan, and I'm watching Patrick Wilson, I'm watching Frank Gore, and I understand what you're saying. Because even me as a Niner fan, I appreciated Frank Gore, but I always put LT higher, I always put Adrian Peterson higher, things like that.
John
but he's
Alexander.
but he's so consistent. And I just, not only consistent, but he was the bright spot on really the worst Niner teams that I've seen in my lifetime. You know,
absolutely. And that might have part of why he, obviously, if they're in better teams, then he probably is. Not only that, he probably has better numbers as well. You know, if you have a better passing game,
he's
going to get more yards per carry.
You can't argue he has worse numbers, but gets more
more efficient though.
More efficient. I agree with that. Now, so are we in agreement with Frank Gore?
We can go with Gore because Gore was my number 2.
Okay.
I went with Craig because like I said, with what his dual threat.
Yeah.
So
now we're gonna go with
the Rams.
There we go. L.A. St. Louis.
L.A. St. Louis back to L.A. Rams. Shout out to the Ram Bros. My cousins are founders of that. They've even had local news talk about them and stuff. We're military gear and everything. So I want you guys to give me your feedback on my Rams, top 5 Rams. So I'm gonna start with the position that was really the hardest because there's nobody, I couldn't even think of one, and that was tight end.
Okay, thank you.
So I went with Higbee because of just the longevity. They haven't had tight ends be super productive in their entire history. So I went with Higbee. Quarterback, I was between 2 guys. Okay, and it was difficult because it's what do you. The time period is so vastly different. But one is Kurt Warner, obviously, who had one of the greatest 3-run stretches of any quarterback in NFL history.
Yes.
But he only played 6 years on the Rams.
Yes.
And the first year on the Rams, he only started 1 game. His second year, he wins MVP, throws for over 40 touchdowns. At that point, the only guy other than Dan Marino to do it. Yes. Over 4,000 yards. Leads them to Super Bowl. Next year, finishes second in MVP voting to his teammate.
Correct. That's when he had the 1,000 yards.
Yeah. And then the year after, they go back to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They do lose, but he wins MVP again.
Yes.
2 MVPs, 3 top 2 MVP finishes, 2 Super Bowl appearances, a 5-2 playoff record with a Super Bowl victory.
Yes.
That 3-year stretch is nuts. And even the year after that, he had individually a good year, but they didn't do very well.
They lost to the Bucs, I believe.
They didn't make the playoffs that year, I don't think.
Okay.
His 4th year, and then the year after that was the year in between.
Yeah.
The year in between they lost to the Bucs.
Yeah. Then
the year after that he got injured. Mark Bulger took over, and Kurt Warner, remember, because he was like 28 when he got in the league.
Yeah.
Was like 34. They cut ties, and then he ends up still having a good career. Yeah, he was the bridge for Eli.
I don't think a lot of people remember that.
He was the bridge for Eli.
Yeah.
And then the Cardinals brought him in to bridge Liner, because Liner they didn't feel it was ready, and he took those keys and went with it. And Norm Van Brocklin, which is funny because statistically, if you look at these guys, dude, the guy didn't even throw 2,000 yards in the season.
Different game.
But back that he revolutionized quarterback a lot. He had a much longer career on the Rams. I ended up going with Warner because the quarterback position back then was just so different. Yeah. It really wasn't throwing the ball. I mean, you're averaging less than 100 yards a game some years passing. So I went with Warner. My receivers, I was between 3 guys. Isaac Bruce was the shoe-in.
Yes.
Okay. And the other 2 guys I was choosing between was Torrey Holt and Cooper Kupp. And I went with Cooper Kupp, actually. And I went with Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
2 first-team All-Pros. I think he's made 3 Pro Bowls. Would have been a Pro Bowler last year had he not gotten injured. And as long as Stafford is their quarterback and Kupp is healthy, Cooper Kupp's going to put up numbers because he is a favorite target for Matt Stafford. Also a Super Bowl MVP, Cooper Kupp. So I went with Kupp as the second wide receiver. Now I left running backs for last because I just wanted to talk for a second about how many good running backs the Rams have had. And I'll start with a guy who's only on the team for 3 years, so he's definitely not going to be in this conversation, but Jerome Bettis. He's a Hall of Fame running back.
Yes.
The next 2 guys are not going to be it. But do you know who the all-time leading rusher for the Rams are?
Steven Jackson.
Steven Jackson, right? Over 11,000 yards as a Ram.
Yeah.
Which is insane. That's a lot of yards. He was very consistent, but he was never one of the best running backs in the league. In terms of accolades, he only made, I think, 2 Pro Bowl, maybe 3 Pro Bowl appearances as a Ram. Was a tough runner. I hated that guy watching him run if he ran against my team because he was so. How
much do you think he weighed?
Oh man,
245, 250?
At least. I feel like he did. I'd have to look it up to see what he weighed, but he was a big boy, and he was pretty fast when he got in the open field.
Yeah.
And then Todd Gurley, who's also not in this conversation, but his first 5 years in this league, right?
Yes.
He's an offensive rookie of the year.
Yes.
His second year was Jared Goff was the first round pick, number 1 overall pick. It was Jeff Fisher's last year. Jeff Fisher completely ruined. Well, the Rams weren't good when he got there, but he didn't help. Gurley averaged only like 3 yards a carry, I think.
Correct.
He played all 16 games and didn't even have 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
But they were an awful
He had like
team.
980 or something.
Not even close. I don't think he broke 900. And then his third year in the league, Sean McVay gets there.
Yes.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Has an absolute outstanding year. The year after that, he's a first team All Pro again, and then he makes another Pro Bowl. And then he starts to get the injuries start to take hold on him, and he's out of the league. And even
he just
that year,
turned 30.
And even that year on the Falcons, I mean, he had like 9 touchdowns, but he had like 56 touchdowns over a span of like 5 years on the Rams.
You could put that against almost.
Absolutely, it was very. He had one bad year. He made 4 Pro Bowls in a 5-year span, 2 first-team All-Pros, and an Offensive Player of the Year. And he's not even in this conversation. It's between 2 guys, and it's between Eric Dickerson.
There we
and
go. I was
Marshall
waiting.
Faulk. Okay, those are the 2 guys it's between.
Yeah.
Neither one of them were with the Rams for a long time. So Eric Dickerson was 4.5 years.
Yes.
4.5 years.
Yes.
He ran for 2,000 yards his second year in the league. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year.
In that year, he ran for how many?
1,400 something? 1,600?
No, 1,800.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He ran for 7,000 yards in 4.5 years on the Rams.
Yes.
He finished Offensive Player of the Year, top 3 twice, I think. The Rams were not good, obviously, at that time.
No. But they were playoff contenders.
They were, yes, they were around a 500-ish team. They were competing for playoffs, but you knew they weren't going to win. Obviously, he had a very great career Hall of Fame running back. Marshall Faulk, and it's funny because then he went to the Colts. Marshall Faulk did the opposite, right? Started with the Colts, goes to the Rams. Marshall Faulk's last year on the Colts, I think he was a first or second team All-Pro. Goes to the Rams. His first year is Kurt Warner's year starting.
Yes.
Listen to this as a running back. 3 straight years, he finishes second MVP voting, wins Offensive Player of the Year. Wins the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year with the 1,000 yards rushing receiving that you already touched on. Led the league in scrimmage yards almost 2,500 in 16 games.
Yes.
Right? So that's over 150 yards a game from scrimmage.
That's insane.
With, I think he had 25 or 26 touchdowns total. And then the next year, he led the league in scrimmage yards and total touchdowns again, over 20 total touchdowns again. Finished second again in MVP voting and won a 3rd consecutive Offensive Player of the Year. Then the year after that, he still had over 1,000 yards, made yet another Pro Bowl, and made, I think, a second team All-Pro. So 3 straight first team All-Pros there in a row. Then he had another year, he got hurt towards the end of the year. Came back and finished like 5th or 6th in Comeback Player of the Year. And then that was it. Steven Jackson essentially took the mantle.
So who you pick?
But I got to be honest with you, man. I got to take Marshall Faulk. Now, I know you're going with Eric Dickerson. And Eric Dickerson as a pure runner, better. But Marshall Faulk was such an elite playmaker.
Yeah.
With the ball in his hands. Yeah. Touchdowns, all that. I mean, when you talk about finishing first or second MVP 3 years in a row, at any sport, at any position, that's incredible.
Yeah.
When you consider it's a running back, that's rare.
Yeah.
And then you consider the 2 times he lost MVP and was second, it was to his own quarterback.
To his teammate.
So he essentially, other than his own teammate, was the best player in the league 3 years in a row.
Okay. And the other guy that you're talking about wasn't? In the 80s. When you're running back, because you got to remember, before the West Coast offense, before my team, the Niners, the NFL was drastically different.
Yeah, it was running the football.
So I'll say this well, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
No, but I have to go with Falk because of that,
okay.
Man. I do. He finished just under Dickerson in terms of total yards, which he played 6 years, I think, on the Rams. Is what I think it was, and really, I mean, 1 year was a half year, so really they played about the same amount of years.
Yeah.
He had significantly less carries.
Yes.
Especially again the last couple of years he was splitting with Steven Jackson as well. Obviously, total yards he was first, and touchdowns he was first.
Yes.
So he scored more touchdowns, had more total yards. Was obviously a better receiver than Dickerson.
Yeah.
And I can still remember my dad always saying about Eric Dickerson, and he was a Rams fan until they left LA. And then they came back. The one thing he couldn't stand about Eric Dickerson was he would run out of bounds.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand that. He hated that. He was like, Eric Dickerson's great, but I can't stand how he runs out of bounds.
I get this. It's the Franco Harris, right?
Yeah.
But, okay.
So go to the running back last. Because I know you're different on that.
So I'll say this.
Go to the other positions.
Tight end, there's not even a name. I put a question mark.
Yeah.
Because
I don't think I think they've had one. I think they've had one Pro Bowl tight end, and I think it was Higbee, maybe one, and he was.
And that was in like
he was an alternate. He wasn't even like the main.
So I was basically resigned to say, hey, whoever you said was tight end was going to be tight end. Now I'm
I hope he comes back from his injury.
I'm a little disappointed in you, man.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna show your NFL history here. So Isaac Bruce, that's a slam dunk. I respected my elders, and I put Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch.
Okay.
So I think it was 1951, he had 17 touchdowns, which is crazy. Like that might as well have been 100 touchdowns in 1951.
Yeah.
But he was like one of the very first, elite receivers. Now the first elite receiver, the GOAT receiver from that time, we'll talk about later on. We'll talk about another NFC team.
Yeah.
But I landed the same with you. I had the same quarterbacks as far as, Kurt Warner, Norm Van Brocklin. But I just couldn't. Look, there's going to be some teams that we talk about where I'm going to go old school with their quarterback. But I said, I can't do that here. Kurt Warner.
That's one of the best stretches.
The greatest show on turf. See, now I'm making your running back case for you. But the greatest show on turf is going to be one of the most remembered offenses.
It changed offenses.
Offensive generation.
Yeah.
So that in itself is like in you have 3 representatives from that offense on your. Actually, you have because you picked Cooper. You picked Cooper. So you have 3 representatives.
Torrey Holt was never the best receiver on his team.
Never.
So
no,
I feel
which
like
is why.
Well, I guess once Bruce left, he was the best, but he was never. I think like 5
I always
Pro
think
Bowls.
he was like he's
a second tier. Yeah,
he's
great
like Reggie Wayne.
too.
He's like Reggie Wayne.
Yeah.
Like they're elite number 2s.
Yeah.
Right. I just listen. I'm willing to listen to you because at first I said, we're going to have our first real debate here, which we try not to do the whole debate thing because it's kind of cheesy. But I said we're going to have our first debate here on two ball because I just think Eric Dickerson is the best pure running back. Yeah, I'm not talking about like running, receiving. I'm just talking about I don't know if there's ever been a guy that lined up 5 yards behind the quarterback and got ready to take a handoff that was more talented at doing that than Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying.
But I'll say this. Because, again, we're building these as offenses.
Well, and to me, it's not even that, though.
Yeah.
He wasn't... It was 5.5 years. You know what I mean?
Yes. Remember this? Remember the life of a running back.
That's what... No, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
He also had, 4.5 good years on the Colts.
Correct.
That's 9 years. If you take him overall against Marshall Faulk, I'm leaning Dickerson. I think his overall career was better.
Yeah.
Because the first couple years, Marshall Faulk on the Colts wasn't as good as obviously as the first couple years of Dickerson,
in the last year,
or as the last couple of years of Dickerson.
He was banged up a lot.
Yes,
and he did good without him. That's the year when Jim Harbaugh led him to the AFC Championship game,
and that's why they let him.
Yeah, they kind of had a running back by committee. They had Zach Crockett. They had I can't remember the other guy. I think his name was Anthony Johnson, another guy. But I'm willing to call. I'm willing to wave the white flag and give it to you, even though I think Eric Dickerson is the GOAT as pure runner, because I do think Marshall Faulk is grossly underrated. I do think
he is. And again, you look at that. Again, it's a 3-year run, but when you look at Dickerson, he only played 5.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that 4th year that Faulk had was still very good. It just, you know, he started to tail off.
Just know this. Just know this.
That 3-year run there's no running back that I can think of right now off the top of my head that had a 3-year run as dominant as that. 3 years consecutively.
If this was the all-time running back list,
no, that's what I'm saying.
Then I would argue,
Eric Dickerson's a better running back as a career, but as a Ram, I have to go with Faulk because of that, what he did. And what he did in those years was incredible.
In the greatest show on turf. Like, it's not just the nickname. Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that, because it's the impact. Like, you could literally see the shift in how offensive philosophies kind of changed. They're kind of agent zero in a certain way. Even with the Patriots doing what they did against them, right? Because, so, you got that. You got that.
All right. So what are we doing about wide receiver? You know what?
No. You know what? No. I'm going to be, because we try to be honest and real on this show. We're going to, I'm embarrassed to say this. I didn't even think about Cooper Kupp.
Well, it's because he was hurt last year. I think you lose some of that. But, I mean, that year he had is one of the best single seasons of any wide receiver.
But it's not just that year.
That's my point.
That's So
even last year, you look at the amount of games, his per game, what his impact was per game, and then you look at his impact for the Rams. Like, look when they won the Super Bowl, the impact he had. You knew who Matt Stafford was throwing the ball to. In the Super Bowl, OBJ got hurt. Who were the other receivers? Vaughn Jefferson and I don't know.
Odell doesn't get hurt. I still say Odell doesn't get hurt. He's on his way to be Super Bowl MVP that game. But that's all.
He might. But you're keying on Cooper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that allowed him to key on Cooper even more, and he's still the one that beat you.
So let me ask you this. What are they going to look like next year? Who's the number one receiver? Is it Cooper or is it Puka?
Well, it's Cooper, and I think they complement each other well because Puka's big.
Yeah, Puka's
big.
He's big.
I think they can play together, and that's not a problem. Not a problem.
And
Kyron Williams is a beast. Look, if Kyron Williams has 3-4 more years like he's having, now he's in this list of great running backs that played on the Rams.
Can I tell you a dirty little secret? Listen.
He led the league in rushing. He missed like 5 games.
When Aaron Donald retired, I was so happy because the Rams scared me.
Well, yeah, because you can't block that, man.
But I'm saying with that offense,
if they can protect Stafford.
They make me nervous.
Their offensive line can protect Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Matt Stafford is a very good quarterback if he's upright. He's not mobile.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, there's Seahawks.
Seahawks. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's go with the easy one. The two very easy ones, okay?
I think there's 3, but yeah. I think there's 3, but go ahead.
We'll touch on that because I know what you're talking about. But quarterback is Russell Wilson. Like, come on now. Like, I get it. It's become, trendy to beat up on Russell Wilson.
No, man,
people want to talk about how corny he is. And
that's Tom Brady's fault, man. People at 34, 35 years old weren't good quarterbacks anymore. Tom Brady ruined it.
When we were growing up, by the time you were 33, 34, they were...
You were retired.
Listen,
you were
Broncos.
Yeah.
John Elway, he kicked it in that second leg, but they drafted Tommy Maddox in the first round.
Yeah.
Because the idea was he was going to be groomed to be his replacement. Yeah. Guys didn't last 40 until they were 40 plus. But Russell Wilson, and then the second no-brainer is Steve Largent, man. Largent was the route god, right? The other receiver, listen, as a Niner fan, you got to... DK scares me. DK he's the scariest guy in that of our conference play in our division. He scares me more than anybody.
Yeah.
So I say DK.
Okay.
Tight end Christian Fourier.
Okay.
I think I know who you might say, but now running back. Okay, listen, man. I
just one answer to this.
Listen,
if you don't pick it, then
Bay Area stand up. I love Marshon Lynch. But I can't not say Steve Alexander. I'm Sean Alexander, excuse me. I cannot. Sean Alexander.
26, 27.
For 4 years. Was it 4 or 5 years?
I think 4 years. but anyway. They went to a Super Bowl. Matt Hasselbeck is their quarterback.
Who is better than? Come on, don't do that to Tim. Matt Hasselbeck, but Matt Hasselbeck was an above average quarterback.
Yeah.
He was a Pro Bowl.
But you weren't winning the Super Bowl.
No.
They didn't win anyway.
Yeah. But they should have won that Super Bowl.
Well,
that's a whole new thing. But Sean Alexander, what did he have 1 year?
26 touchdowns.
26 touchdowns.
And he didn't catch the ball.
He didn't catch the ball at all. He was literally running back. Alabama running back. Like old school Alabama running back. I think he was bigger and faster than people think. I think
he was faster than people think. I think people saw his size.
Yeah, because he was.
But he didn't run like a guy that was that size.
He did. He really did.
Marshon Lynch ran like a dude that was that big.
He ran like the brick wall. He was. But
Sean Alexander didn't run like that. Sean Alexander was faster and more agile, I think, than people thought.
But the problem with him is he was great.
He fell off.
And then he just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people go through a steady decline. Mm-hmm. So we get the time to kind of appreciate them.
Well, you could even make the argument Peyton Manning fell off a cliff, although he had an injury, but still.
Yeah, but Peyton Manning played for 16, 17 years.
Yeah, but
Sean Alexander.
He was an MVP candidate. Then the next year, he couldn't even throw the ball 20 yards.
But we still had that long body of a career to appreciate. Sean Alexander, it felt like he should have had more meat on the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing you know, you're like, God, he's a Redskin, and he's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to call any professional like he's terrible. I'll just say he's a Redskin.
Compared to what he was.
He's not the same
a shell of
guy.
himself.
He's a shell of himself. There we go. So let's hear you out, man.
So I went with the three locks for me were Russell Wilson, Sean Alexander, and Steve Largent.
Yeah.
Sean Alexander, Lynch would have been number 2.
Yeah.
Lynch had a better, probably, overall career in terms of consistency.
Yeah.
But Sean Alexander's peak was significantly better. Has an MVP for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Marshon Lynch never had a season that sniffed Sean Alexander's top 3 or 4 seasons.
No.
Tied in with Jimmy Graham. He played 4 years there and made 4 Pro Bowls. So
I think those Pro Bowls were based off a name at that point.
I don't know, man. He was still putting up touchdowns.
And he
was still getting touchdowns. He was a more productive tight end, I think, than Christian Foria. Yeah. Now, Foria is a better blocker.
Yeah.
Okay. The game was different, but I went with Jimmy Graham.
Okay.
And my second receiver, I do think DK's there in a few years. Right. I went with Lockett because Lockett has a longer body of work.
So you went off the career numbers.
I did. Because if you look at their career numbers since DK's been there, they're not that different. DK's slightly more yards per catch. DK's got him. Okay. Lockett catches more balls. Uh-huh. The overall yards are pretty similar. And the touchdowns are pretty similar because DK had 1 year where he really didn't get any touchdowns. Now, again, I get your point.
Because I'm going to ask you a question.
In terms of who am I more afraid of, it's absolutely DK. Now, but remember, when Tyler Lockett was young and was a rookie, you were scared of him for a different reason.
Yeah.
He was fast.
Yes.
Remember, he was just their punt returner. They had Doug Baldwin and...
Come on, you know it.
Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name.
Come on.
But Doug Baldwin was the main receiver.
Not Silver, but...
Yeah. Golden Tate.
There we go.
I was like, I'm picturing him right now.
Yeah.
But anyway...
don't bring him up to Russell Wilson.
Tyler Lockett... Tyler Lockett, beat you in speed, but I give Tyler Lockett a lot of credit because he has completely molded into a receiver. When he first came out, he was just a punt returner, streaks, right?
Yes.
He'd run the go route and he'd return punts. He learned how to do other things. He's made some incredible catches.
Yes.
So I went with Lockett because, again, the numbers, in terms of their impact on each other there, I think they complement each other well.
Uh-huh.
Again, I do think if DK stays there, he's going to surpass Tyler Lockett. I think they need a new quarterback. I don't think Geno's it, but if they get a quarterback that can throw the ball,
keep Geno.
That can get the ball to DK on the shorter routes.
Yes.
In terms of getting him on the slants, the outs, the curls, and he can catch it and do stuff after the catch.
Yes.
He is going to absolutely take over that. But I wouldn't Lockett because I do think up to this point, Lockett's had a better overall career. I think the Pro Bowl numbers are even close to the same.
Playing longer.
Yes, but I'm saying even in the terms they played, with the years they played together, the numbers are strikingly similar. Lockett has made more Pro Bowls up to this point. I mean, there's been a couple years DK hasn't made it. So it's not like DK every year is in that conversation and he's making a Pro Bowl every year. Neither one's made an All-Pro team. So I went with Lockett. So Lockett and Graham were my two that were different than yours.
So, okay, you touched on it, but this is the question I always ask people. If you're a defensive coordinator and you have to face the Seahawks the next Sunday,
right?
Who's keeping you up in
But that's what I'm saying. Because to your point, they're not the same age. So right now,
okay, let's say they're the same age. Let's kind of say they come into the league at the same time.
I think Lockett is a better receiver, better route runner, better hands. DK is physically more intimidating.
Yeah,
DK,
and he's faster.
DK at this point, yeah. I think before it was pretty close, but
DK's
size makes it
legit
different.
4'3".
DK size makes it a different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, DK you're more worried about in terms of it just his pure size. You know what I mean? Just you see him and you're like, okay, well, we got to do something against him because no corner's going to match up on him one-on-one.
No.
So, I mean, I'm okay going with DK because I think he's going to take over that mantle. But I do think Jimmy Graham is
I'm cool. So
even in his career on the Seahawks, I think he was because Russell Wilson utilizes tight ends pretty well. Yeah. And he was easily by far the best tight end Russell Wilson ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
Hear me on this. I would say, I think, because you're for the people who don't know, if you don't watch episode 1, you're a Broncos fan. Who would you be more excited about being on your team, DK or Tyler Lockett?
I mean, DK, absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
I'm willing to go with Jimmy Graham because I think as I was doing the exercise, I have a whole Jimmy Graham theme that we're going to talk about.
Because we think of Jimmy Graham as a Saint.
Yes.
And he wasn't as good on the Seahawks as he was on the Saints, but he was still better than... And part of that may be because the best tight ends have been in the AFC. Because when he was in Seattle, maybe 1 year of Kittle being there in Frisco, there wasn't... The best tight ends at that time were in the AFC. They were not in the NFC.
I think he's back. He's still in the league. He's back on the Saints, right?
Is he playing still?
I think
I don't know
that.
But after the Seahawks, he went to the Bears. He went to the Packers.
I
don't know what it was, but my point is, the top tight ends in the league were not in the NFC.
Of course.
So yes, that may skew his Pro Bowls, but if you do look at his production is there.
So can we parse this in the middle?
Yeah, because I had DK at 3, so we'll go. That's fine.
And I had Jimmy Graham as my number 2 tight end. Now,
so Arizona is one. So there is. I'm just going to get the one that everybody knows out of the way. Fitz.
Yes.
Okay. So we're done there.
Yes.
That's number 1. Now, running back, if you know football history and you've paid attention to it, I think it's a no-brainer for this one as well. Otis Anderson, I think, is the guy for the Cardinals at running back. Tight end, same thing, going back, but Jackie Smith.
Yes.
Quarterback and the second wide receiver. Second wide receiver, I went with Roy Green. So I went back a ways too. Okay. But second wide receiver, and again, I almost went with Bolden. Bolden's rookie year was phenomenal, but I look at Bolden's career and I'm like, dude, if you could have stuck with the team, man, because he was good.
Yes.
For 3 different teams.
Yes.
For 3+ years.
Yes.
He had 3 good years on Baltimore. Was it 3 or 4 on Frisco? 3, and then he finished somewhere else after that. But he was.
It was weird seeing him.
He was injured, and I don't know what that was weird. Yeah. And then he had, I think, 6 years on the Cardinals. So I went with Roy Green, but I'm if you went with Bolden, I'm open to switching because I was between those two. And then quarterbacks, I was like, holy smokes!
I know.
Kurt Warner. Okay, he took him to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So in terms of team success, he did the best, but he also had, a top 5 wide receiver of all time in Larry Fitzgerald, and then Anquan Bolden was there too, who was at that time,
top 5,
Fitz. I think so. The guy never dropped the ball. I mean, holy smokes.
Well, that'll be another conversation for another day. But
top 10? I mean, come on. First ballot Hall of Famer?
Top 10.
First ballot Hall of Famer?
I'll give you top 10. My top 5 is pretty solid. We'll talk about that another time, though.
Okay. Go ahead. And Hart, going back, the guy that played 20 years.
Neil Lomax. No, I'm playing.
So I went with Hart because, honestly, I mean, you look at it, and it was 60s, 70s, early 80s, and he was there for a long time. They were okay. It actually surprised me when I looked at the records of the quarterbacks that have played for the Cardinals.
Yes.
The only one that played more than 40 games that had a winning record was it wasn't even Carson Palmer. I'm sorry. I think Hart was right around 500. I don't think there was one. I don't think Warner wasn't over 500.
No.
Neither was Palmer, despite the fact they had that one year where he was like, I think he finished second MVP voting to Cam.
I think they won.
They went to the NFC Championship game and got absolutely destroyed by Carolina.
Oh no, by Carolina. I'm sorry, by Carolina.
Yeah,
you're right.
So I went with Hart because and honestly, it was really for a lack of options.
Yeah,
to be honest.
And and it's funny because we talked about the NFC and we talked about how, a lot of these teams are like the grandfather teams where
the Cardinals have been around forever.
I think they were the Chicago Cardinals at some point.
They were St. Louis.
St. Louis, there we go.
They were St. Louis Cardinals.
They were in the
Hart never played in Arizona.
Do you remember them being in the NFC East?
Yeah, well, they were St. Louis.
Sense. Oh, yeah, that's right. Now, okay. I went with Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
I went with Jackie Smith, the tight end. And so Jackie Smith is the Bill Buckner of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
No, hear me on this. So Bill Buckner is remembered for the ball going between his legs, right? But he was a 300 hitter for a long career. Jackie Smith was an awesome tight end, but most people remember him for dropping a catch in the Super Bowl with the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Much later in his career. But Larry Fitzgerald, Jackie Smith, I went with Anquan Bolden. Now,
okay, I'm willing to go that way.
I'm impressed that you said Roy Green. Mm-hmm. Now, my third. Roy Green was fourth on my list. Third for me was Rob Moore.
Okay.
Rob Moore was really good. He played for some terrible Cardinal teams, but running back, it's okay. It's interesting because a part of me agrees with you when you said no brainer. Otis Anderson was amazing. Again,
there were guys that had better seasons.
Well, this is the thing. Okay, I went really outside the box on this one. I'm a huge Larry Sanders fan.
Okay.
And yes, he was a fullback.
Yeah.
He was a fullback.
Yeah.
And he
caught a lot of passes.
Oh my goodness. Larry Sanders was amazing. He was a great blocker.
Yeah.
He was like an undersized fullback.
Honestly,
he was about
220,
225. But I mean, he would have years with like 80, 90 catches.
Yeah.
And he was
he didn't carry the ball very much.
He draws, things like that.
He probably had as many catches as carries.
Yeah, literally. But again, great blocker, things like that. I don't know if I really consider him or I just really kind of listed him because I want to bring him up. Otis Anderson is by far their leading rusher.
You gotta go with Otis Anderson.
We'll go with Otis Anderson. And then Otis Anderson had a second act with the Giants. And was, I think he was Super Bowl MVP that year.
I'd have to check on that. He was a good player.
Yeah, good player.
So who's your quarterback?
Oh, dude, Kurt Warner. Come on, man. Like we could do this thing where it's like, oh, he didn't play long enough, but it's like, I'm afraid if I didn't do Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald might find out and come fight me at my house because that's the only legit. Was he there with Carson Palmer?
Yeah,
he was there. But
no. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
That was tail end Fitzgerald though.
Well, I mean, he was still good, but
he
wasn't.
You know what I mean? He wasn't prime.
He wasn't putting up 150.
So I just out of respect to Larry Fitzgerald. And respect to, and we talked about how many guys were going to be on two teams, and I think, man, well,
he ain't gonna make threes. He ain't making threes.
No. What I was going to say is, I think he might be the least of the players who makes two teams, but actually now it's going to be somebody else. I think because somebody else just solidified himself with two teams. So so let's go ahead and let's go to. We're done with the NFC West, right?
So we're going to the South. So we're going to the South.
Okay, we're going to go to the South now, right?
Yeah. So we're going with who do you want to start with?
So we're going to start off with. Give me a second. I'm sorry. You know what? For the local, for the people who actually was born in Georgia. I don't know if they're. I mean, is there people actually born here? Or do we all just move here?
Well, you can tell by how they talk.
Exactly. Right. There's a difference between for and foe.
Foe.
So we'll go with the Falcons. Okay?
We're fixing to go for the Falcons.
We're fixing to go with the Falcons. Now, this might. I think we might have some interesting conversations.
Yeah.
So
I think quarterback, tight end, and one receiver are absolute shoo-ins.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Now, let's go with the obvious one, Julio.
Yeah.
Okay, Julio's in the
first ballot. Best receiver. I mean, him and AB were the best receivers for 5 years.
Yes.
Take your pick.
To me, he was in that Super Bowl. in that Super Bowl, he was the best player on the field.
Yeah.
And that's with the Patriots having Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
He was the best that season. He was the best player on the field in that Super Bowl. For me, and I look, this is going to be. I'm a little older than you.
Yeah.
Andre Rison was probably the third or fourth best receiver between like 1990 and 94.
Mm-hmm.
The only ones you can say were definitely better than him was obviously the GOAT, Jerry Rice, Sterling Sharp, and probably Michael Irvin. So he might have been the fourth best receiver in a very deep 90s.
Yeah, there was some
there was some. I mean, you got Herman Moore, you got Andre Reed, you got Tim Brown. You got. I mean, it just goes on and on. So I picked Andre Rison. Tight end is Tony Gonzalez, to me, who's finding himself on his second team. Matt Ryan, listen.
You don't have to say nothing. 60,000 yards.
I have to say something to the people who are watching because I've been in Georgia for 8 years now. And I feel like I've become a Matt Ryan stan because it always bothered me how disrespected Falcon fans treated Matt Ryan. And I would always think, you guys do know he's the best quarterback you ever had.
Well, look, they haven't had a quarterback. They went out and signed Kirk Cousins, but look at their quarterback since he left.
People get the best quarterback and most exciting quarterback mixed up. Michael Vick is not the Falcons' best quarterback. Yeah. He's their most exciting quarterback. He might be their most exciting player, although I would say that's probably Deion.
Yeah, offensively,
Offensively, he's their most exciting player. Matt Ryan is your best quarterback. Matt Ryan, and this is why I feel bad for Matt Ryan.
I didn't even have a second pick for that.
That was slam dunk for me. If they win that Super Bowl, the rest of his career, he's known as future Hall of Famer Matt Ryan. Because they lose that 28-3 Super Bowl, he will not sniff the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's sad. That's sad to me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where we might.
Running back was the most difficult one for me. 100%.
So for me,
there was a lot.
Now,
of guys.
And I don't know.
They've had a lot of good running backs, and none of them played there a long time.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I grew up a huge 49er fan, still to this day, huge 49er fan. But the second thing is, I love college football. I was a huge Bobby Bowden fan and a huge.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
When I say, I used to always say when I played, when I played in high school and everything, in college, I used to say, listen, if Bobby Bowden told me I could be a gunner on his special teams, I would walk to Florida. He wouldn't even have to pay for my flight.
This is from California, dude.
I love Bobby Bowden.
Yeah.
Work done.
Okay.
Grossly underrated. But if you say Michael the Burner Turner, I wouldn't be mad at you.
Gotcha. So I went with Matt Ryan, Tony Gonzalez, Julio Jones. For the second wide receiver, I did end up going with Rison because of the time period that he was there.
Yes.
That was just elite. You know what I mean? So that was just elite.
But mention who's third.
Third for me would have been Roddy White.
Yes.
And so that his overall career as a Falcon was better.
Yes.
But the years that Andre Rison had as a Falcon were better than any years that Roddy White had as a Falcon.
1,000%.
But Roddy White had a very good career.
Yes.
He had over 10,000 yards. You know, Julio and Roddy White are the only pair of teammates to have over 10,000 yards on the same team that played together. On the same, they had 10,000 yards together.
Great stat.
Together.
That's a great stat. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
When you think about that.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then running back, I went with Burner Turner. And it was tough. Like I said, Jamal Anderson was great.
Yes.
He Dirty Bird, baby. Too bad you ran into my Broncos. But he was that year. We had 1,800 and something yards, I think.
Trust me, as a Niner fan,
he was second in the league in rushing yards that year.
Behind who? Go ahead and say it. There we go. Yeah.
But you look at they have a lot of good running backs, but they have for 3-4 years work done. Same thing. Yeah. And to be work done, they also ran with
T.J. Duckett.
That's who it was.
Yes.
I couldn't remember his name. So he didn't get. And then really that was his whole career, because in Tampa it's Mike Allstott. He shared with Allstott. Workman was never the feature back. He was never the feature back for his team, which obviously he's not a Hall of Famer, and that's could play into the reason why.
Yeah.
But I went with Bernard Turner because his first year he had like 1,700 yards,
Yes.
like 15 touchdowns.
I think once he over average close to 5 yards a
Yeah,
carry.
his first 2 to 3 years on the Falcons were insane. He signed a 6-year contract. Remember people used to do those? 6-year contract, for like $40 million or something like that.
Yeah.
I wish these teams are probably wishing they could sign running backs for that. But yeah, I went with Bernard Turner. So exactly, we pretty much had the same team in Atlanta.
So this is the thing.
You got to. To me, Turner, his years as a Falcon, I think Warwick done play an extra year or two. Their career numbers are very similar.
They are.
But the career accolades, again, Turner was a second-team All-Pro that year.
Correct.
He made 2 to 3 Pro Bowls.
Yes.
Warwick done, I think, maybe made 1 as a Falcon.
Yes.
So Turner was better in the league compared to his peers as a Falcon than Warwick Dunn was, and that's what
think about all the years Turner was
backing up LT.
Yeah. Man, that team
dude, his thighs are this big.
That team had LT, Michael Turner, Darren Sproles.
They could draft running backs, man.
Yeah. So you know what? And because I was thinking about, man,
it's gotta be Turner, man.
I'm cool to go with that.
Yeah.
I just want to say this in Dunn's defense.
Mm-hmm.
How much better would his stats have looked if Duckett wasn't
Oh,
hawking the
absolutely.
touchdowns? And then he had to share carries with the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, some of Mike Vick's carries were not running plays.
You know what? It wasn't a lot of design runs back then. Could you imagine him now?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But okay, we can go with Turner. We can go with Turner. Yeah.
So now we'll go to Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Tampa Bay.
Okay.
So quarterback, Tom Brady.
Thank you. Don't try to.
Wide receiver 1, Mike Evans.
Yes.
Now wide receiver 2, man, I was between so many guys here because
Let's hear it.
Because you had like Joey Galloway was nuts.
I'm glad you brought him up.
But
Just for the sake of conversation.
He's not it.
Yeah.
Didn't play on any team long enough, but he had a good career.
Yes.
And you talk about the guy that you're scared of. Speed was nuts.
He was a legit 4-1, 4-2.
Yeah, I mean Keyshawn had some good years on Tampa Bay, but not enough.
Yeah.
I ended up going with Godwin, man.
Okay.
And again, it goes down to the accolades.
Yes.
And it goes down to how he has been seen. He's made 3 Pro Bowls, which is the second most of any wide receiver in Tampa Bay history, other than Mike Evans.
Yes.
And then running back, Warwick Dunn finished second again to Mike Allstott. Mike Allstott is the guy.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought I was going to have to argue about this one.
God.
Okay. Good.
And the thing is too, if you Mike Allstott started his career as a fullback. His rookie year, he finished 3rd in offensive rookie of the year voting.
Yes.
He had something like 75 or 80 catches, which is funny because you think of Allstott with the neck roll, and you're like, how does he catch a ball? And then they started giving more and more carries. I think by his 5th or 6th years, he finally got labeled a running back.
Yes.
But to me, it's Mike.
No, he was always a full. Because he would make the Pro Bowl as a fullback, and they kind of be like, no, is he really a fullback?
No, but then they ended up. If you look, go on NFL.com, he becomes a running back.
Did they really?
The last few years, yeah, he was running back because he ended up getting like 250, 300 carries a year.
Yeah.
For a few years, but it's Mike Allstott.
Yeah, and he was lined up in the high formation behind a fullback.
So tight end, I went with Jimmy Giles.
Me too.
Okay. Gronk, I'm sorry. You overall career obviously better.
Yeah.
But 2 years and neither one was that great. Again, playoffs, different story.
Yeah.
But regular season, nothing that great. So we got all the same 5.
So yeah, but no. You don't know how happy I am about this because I said, you know what? I'm willing to argue that Allstott is a tailback.
We made the argument, in the AFC one about guys that were an H-back or fullback, but they do get carries.
Yeah.
If they had a running back like Cadillac Williams, man, he had like one really good year, but if he had Doug Martin, remember he had that freakish year.
Oh man, it's like
if he had
yards.
If he had like 3-4 years like that, okay, maybe it's a different story. And it's like even if you consider Allstott a running back, this guy's better. But the Bucs haven't had that.
So I mean, obviously Brady, Allstott, and
Evans. Those 3 were
Evans.
shoo-ins.
I picked Godwin too, but I want to just mention third. I had Mark Carrier.
Oh yeah.
He was a very good, steady player. Like the Bucs were. So me and my cousin, our original junior football league team that we played for was the Bucs. So because we were the Bucs, we had our prospective teams. I'm a huge 49er fan. He was a huge Cowboy fan. But we really followed the Bucks because we were the Bucks. So we got in and it was like, God, they're really terrible. But we just kind of fell in love with the team. The Bucks were just
uniforms too.
Oh no, they don't get the creamsicles. I still love the creamsicles, man.
You know why? It's because I'm white, dude. I'm so fair. That would just look terrible.
So like
no contrast.
Hardy Nickerson to this day is one of my favorite NFL. Like he's one of my favorite football players of all time. But I want to bring up Mark Harris. But yeah, no, we're across the board. Yeah, Tom Brady, Mike Allstott, Mike Evans. Mike Evans is even more no brainer than Tom Brady in my opinion.
Yes, because Tom Brady didn't play enough.
Correct.
But, you know, if you look at this, I just want to say real quick on the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's played 1 year.
Yeah.
He has 4,004 yards.
Yeah.
Now, the Bucs have been a team since 72?
79.
Okay, 79.
Yeah.
So
78, 79 average.
Sometime like 45 years.
Yes.
Baker Mayfield is like right now 12th in passing yards. If he doubles, if he has another year just like this, which I mean he's playing, so if he throws for 4,000 yards again, he will be 4th all time in Tampa Bay passing yards. Jameis Winston's 1. Yeah. Tom Brady with 3 seasons is number 2.
Yes.
So
I'm wondering who's number 3? Is it Doug Williams?
It is Johnson.
Oh, Brad Johnson. Of course.
Brad Johnson.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right. So next team.
All right. So
you do New Orleans or Carolina?
Let's go with Carolina.
Okay.
Let's go with Carolina. You want to start off or you?
You go.
Okay. So let's go with the obvious. Come on, Cam. Cam Newton.
Well, they only have 30? No, not even 30. 29 years of. No, we're in 2024. 95. 28 years of history. So everything's going to be recent for Carolina.
I mean, I feel like I could name every.
Well, Cam Newton is only Carolina Panther win MVP. So
yeah, I mean you could. I guess you can argue second would be dumb.
Yeah, but because of the team's success and the length of time he played.
But Cam is
he has every record for a quarterback there. Yeah, won an MVP, took him to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Cam is amazing. So Steve Smith, our receiver, Muhsin Muhammad, who I think is like grossly underrated in terms of just big receiver, big strong, tight end, third leg Greg. I don't know if you ever heard the
yes.
So third leg Greg.
Floor.
Yeah. Apparently, if you bring it up to him, he hates it. But
ashamed of it. These guys.
And then running back, CMC.
Okay.
You got to be cool with that one. Man.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the only one that there was an argument was tight end. So I have Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Steve Smith and Muhsin Muhammad.
Okay.
Those were all, to me, right off the top of my head.
Yes.
Tight end, I was between 2 guys. I was between Greg Olsen.
Yes.
And I was between Wesley Walls. You remember Wesley Walls?
Of course.
He was
49.
And he was their first tight end.
Yeah.
And I went with Wesley Walls, actually. He was more productive of a tight end than Greg Olsen. But I'm okay going with Greg Olsen. I think overall Greg Olsen's a better tight end.
Yeah.
I just think that
it's probably the number 1 receiver.
No, Steve Smith.
Well,
you're talking about while he was there?
After Steve Smith.
You're talking about for Cam, he was the number 1?
Yes.
Kelvin Benjamin had a couple big years. Remember
that
him until he decided to go.
That Super Bowl year, I say Greg Olsen's their number 1 receiver. I'm not talking about stats. I'm just talking about like
probably. Well, if stuff hits the fan. Yeah. So I'm okay going with Greg Olsen there. But I just want to bring Wesley Walls too because he was very underrated tight end.
He used to kill the Niners.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because I'm pretty sure the Niners left him unprotected in that expansion draft. So I don't know if that's.
Well, yeah, you can only protect so many players.
Yeah.
So I know hockey has had the most recent expansion draft, and I think you can only protect. It's either 7 or 9 guys.
Yeah.
Which, granted, I know hockey have way less guys than you do NFL, but still, I mean, only 7 guys on a hockey team is
very off topic. But I can tell you, they're going to have watch for the next. There's a lot of speculation. The next 3 to 5 years, NBA is going to expand.
NBA is going to expand.
They're going to have a team in Las Vegas. They're going to have a team in Seattle. That expansion draft.
They're going to move New Orleans to the east. Amazing. And Memphis to the east.
Dude, there's so much talent in the NBA right now. Yeah. That expansion draft is going to be like legit.
Yeah.
But okay, so
so New Orleans.
Yes.
So New Orleans, I think we'll get the easy ones out.
Yeah.
Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
Running back, I went with Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
I was. Yeah, I went with Alvin Kamara. I mean, dude, Alvin Kamara, and he's still playing.
Yes.
So but you look at his
North
overall,
right?
You look at his overall impact. the touchdowns. I mean, he is extremely efficient. Mark Ingram's an all-time
Never
rusher.
ran for 1,000 yards.
No.
That's
No.
I'm not.
I
I'm saying it like a not. I'm saying it like a. But I don't think that people realize.
I'd have to look. I don't think he's had a season where he's had less than 1,500 total.
I agree with that.
You know.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get suspended for.
It was for like 5 games, and it was a 17-game season. So he still played the 10, 12, 13 games. Maybe that year, but any year that he's played majority of games, he hasn't. But I went with Kamara. Mark Ingram was all-time running back, but he only made, I think, 1 Pro Bowl, and it was that year that both of them made it.
I didn't even consider him.
Deuce McAllister, right, was on those teams. But, I mean, to me, it was Kamara. And then wide receivers, Joe Horn was the lock for me.
Yes. Second one was for me, too.
The second one was difficult, but I went, and this guy has just, it hurts me to say this because of who he's become, Michael Thomas. But Michael Thomas's first, Marcus Colston was the other guy that I was like, and I would hear an argument for Marcus Colston. It's just Michael Thomas, those first few years in the league, he was on a short list of the best receivers in football.
He was a goon.
And then he got the bag and got hurt. And maybe it's just injuries. I don't know.
Yeah.
But coincidences happen.
Yeah.
But fell off a cliff. But those first 3-4 years, whatever it was, were better than any one year that Marcus Colston had. Marcus Colston only made 1 Pro Bowl in his whole career.
Yeah.
But Marcus Colston's the all-time receiver for New Orleans.
Yes.
And so I will hear a Marcus Colston argument, probably because I don't like Michael Thomas and I really hate Ohio State.
So where does that come from?
But the hate of Ohio State, I don't know. You know what? I don't know, honestly.
I know a lot of people just can't stand Ohio State.
You know what? I really can't stand Urban Meyer.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was. Look, I grew up in Southern California, right? My dad, grew up. My dad's from Southern California too. And when he was growing up, when I was growing up, the teams he disliked. I grew up hating the Niners because he was a Rams fan, right? So he hated the 49ers. Yeah. He hated the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right. My dad was not a showboaty person. Hated Deion. Respected his talent, right?
Yeah.
But didn't like Deion Sanders.
I get it.
Which there are a lot of people that are probably in that boat. He's a you do or you don't kind of guy.
Yes.
But he hated certain teams, like Ohio State. He couldn't stand Michigan. So I mean, he doesn't like either one of those teams.
Wait, how do you not like both?
He didn't like either one. He didn't really have California's different with college.
I know.
It's not like down here in Georgia where it's like you Georgia fan.
Well, I was a big Pac-10 fan.
Yeah, and my dad was a Pac-12, Pac-10.
Yeah.
Now Pac-12.
Now nothing. Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's who I went with for my 5. But I think Breeze, Horn, Graham, and Kamara are pretty much locks. The second receiver to me is the argument. Running back, again, you can make arguments because there are other guys, but to me it's Kamara. I think he's had the most impact as a running back.
So Breeze is
and Graham.
Breeze is like why I bring it up. Graham. So I want to take a little time. So Jimmy Graham, this is one of those things where in the moment I remember saying this, where there was back and forth of Jimmy Graham wants a contract like he's a receiver, but they want to pay him like a tight end.
It was a franchise tag.
And I literally, I could see it, and I remember thinking, dude, don't mess this up. Like, you're thinking about the bag now. You're thinking about, I want to get wide receiver money. And I'm thinking about for him, and I'm not even a Saints fan.
It wasn't even the contract; it was the franchise tag.
No, but he also wanted a contract that was similar to a receiver.
But the franchise tag was like a $9 million difference.
Correct.
And back then,
yes,
where the wide receiver was like something like $15 million, the tight end was like $6 million.
But the way I kept looking at it with him is I was like, dude, you are in the perfect situation for you. If you were made a lifetime Saint or like a 12-year Saint, everybody always finishes their career last year or two with somebody else. If you end up being a 10-year, 11-year, 12-year Saint, dude, you are going to wear a golden jacket. And if you get that golden jacket, it's going to pay that money you're going to lose. You're going to gain the rest of your life because you're going to be Hall of Famer Jimmy Graham. Mm-hmm. And I could see that he was going to fumble it over, I don't know if you want to say pride, over ego.
A lot of it's agents too, man.
Agents, whatever it is. But even the agent, though, man, Hall of Fame name is so big, man. you're getting paid the rest of your life off
some
of that.
guys don't look at it that way. Some guys play for money, you know.
No,
and I don't know him.
but
I'm not accusing him of that.
But even if
I don't
you
know
are
him.
playing for money,
Yeah.
the long game. When I say that,
yeah, but when you play for money, you're not playing for the long game. You're playing for the money.
Yeah,
now, and you know
that.
Come on.
I
man.
know, but it's like.
So you picking someone other than Jimmy Graham tight end?
No,
okay.
no. I just want to bring him up because, as good as he is, I will always look at his career and say, man, if you would just.
I still think he
bit
ends
the
up making
bullet.
it, but he won't be a first ballot. But I think he'll end up
I don't
making
think he makes it.
I think he will.
Especially when you look at the tight ends now and the way their stats are going to be.
Well, but that's where
what his stats would have been.
They look at what people are. They look at the comparisons, and you look at when his career was right. You had Antonio Gates, who should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. You have Rob Gronkowski.
He's going to be a first ballot. Like that's not even. Yeah.
And Tony Gonzalez, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer. After that, it's Jimmy Graham. What tight end was better at that time period? You know what I mean? Because all these other guys, Kelsey was towards the end of Jimmy Graham's prime.
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham was still making Pro Bowls, like I said, on Seattle.
Yeah.
But you're going to end up looking.
But is it the slam dunk that it would?
No.
And that's my thing with him.
It's hard to say because if he stays, I mean, if his numbers end up reflecting that, sure.
Which I think they do.
Yeah. I think staying in that offense would have been better for him.
I say that not to say that Graham's not great or Graham is not. I mean, he's by far he's a slam dunk for this. It's just I look at him and I think, man, that career would have looked so much more appealing if you would have just looked at things from a long-term standpoint. Yeah. So I go with Drew Brees at quarterback, obviously Jimmy Graham. Now for me, I went with Joe Horn was a no-brainer. I went with Colston, and I was thinking about Michael Thomas, and you're right, man. That 3-year stretch or whatever.
He had 149 catches in a year.
I mean,
that's 2 years worth of catches.
That is. Now look,
and that's 16 games.
Don't get me wrong. Look, most of them were hitches and slants, but whatever. Hitches and slants get first downs.
That's in 16 games. That's almost 10 catches a game.
I know he was.
But because you can make the argument, Marcus Colston. What did Marcus Colston run? Posts, outs. He wasn't that. Michael Thomas is a better route runner than Marcus Colston. Marcus Colston was raw. He went with Hofstra.
Yes.
He was a raw receiver.
He was undrafted.
Or was he undrafted or seventh round?
He was 7th round. He was 7th round out of Hofstra.
He was a tight end, I think.
Hofstra. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm willing to go because Michael Thomas was number 3 on my list.
Colston was 3 on mine.
But those years were like.
And that was where I went with Thomas because Marcus Colston made 1 Pro Bowl in his career as a Saint.
Let's go Michael Thomas. Let's go Michael Thomas.
And then running back.
So, I kind of had a tie between Deuce McAllister and Alvin Kamara. I personally like Alvin Kamara better. Let's go with Kamara. Yeah,
Kamara's more productive. I mean, he had more touchdowns. McAllister didn't get touchdowns like Kamara did. Remember, Kamara had that 1 year. He had 1 game. He had 5 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, dude, that's a season for some guys.
Yeah.
You know. So
I think we're done. So we're done
with the South.
We're done with the South.
We're going to the East. Now the East is tricky, man, because these teams been around for 3,000 years.
They are.
Okay, so the East, who you starting with on the East?
So I want to start with the team I think is going to allow for the best conversation, right?
Okay.
So let's start off with the Giants.
Okay.
So
this is going to be interesting, I think.
I think that there was one slam dunk.
Okay.
And I think the rest we might have some conversation about.
Okay.
Slam dunk to me was a tight end, Mark Bavaro. We might even have some conversation around that.
No.
That
was it.
Now, so let me say this: the receivers, Amani Toomer, who another Bay Area. There we go, another Bay Area superstar. Went to De La Salle, then went to Michigan. Odell Beckham. Now this is the thing, and I just seen something today where somebody said, "Oh, if it wasn't for that catch, we wouldn't even care who." Odell Beckham's first 5 years in the league.
I don't know if you go 5, but yeah, because he got hurt one of them.
He got hurt one.
Actually, every year on the Giants, other than the year he got hurt,
he had 1,300 yards every year. aside from the year he got
And the
hurt.
first year, he only played 11 games, his rookie year?
12 games. So, okay, story about Odell Beckham, too. Now, this is what I read a long time ago. And, you know, who knows if it's actually true or anything like that. So, Jim Harbaugh, who's my favorite 49er coach of all time, one big rift between him. Dude, I was
too young.
Like,
During your lifetime.
I just love Jim Harbaugh.
I'm just checking.
No, I just love him. I loved him as a quarterback, everything. But Jim Harbaugh wanted them to trade up so badly to draft Odell Beckham. And apparently it caused a very big rift between him and Trent Baalke, who was a GM at the time. Because, you know, the Niners probably had I think they had 11 picks that year. It's like, trade some of them. Let's go up in the draft. Let's get Odell Beckham. Oh, God. All right, let's just change the subject. But Odell Beckham was on a Hall of Fame pace. Trajectory.
He was on a historic pace.
Now, running back, and this is just by default because I'm not a big fan, but Tiki Barber or whatever. Quarterback? Wyatt Tittle.
You going real old school on that one.
So, I love the Mannings. I think Eli Manning is, that dude doesn't even have blood. He's got ice water. But he only had ice water for 2 years, man.
No, he had ice water for 2 years starting in January.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, and I think we had this conversation before, that he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. He should not be in the Hall of Fame.
The conversation another day, man.
But so
your argument for Wyatt Tittle is what? I'm just hearing it. No.
Wyatt Tittle is so it's going to be interesting because this is going to be a topic that comes up in the NFC East. Wyatt Tittle was one of the original quarterback goats. I mean, he was, you know, he started this gangsta-ish, right? Like Wyatt Tittle was Montana during his time.
Yeah.
He was Brady during his time.
Yeah.
I'm willing to listen to Eli Manning because I get it. Like, you know, quarterback different. You know, it was different. But I chose Wyatt Tittle.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll start with where we had the same. We had Bavaro. I had Barber. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of by default. I do think if Barkley would have re-signed and stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Because Barkley is significantly more physically talented than Tiki Barber.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, I did have OBJ. I had him as my 2.
Okay.
I had Amani Toomer as my 3.
Oh.
I had Frank Gifford.
Oh, you went old school.
I went old school, and he was one of the original OG wide receivers from the 50s.
Yeah.
But I went Frank Gifford.
He was a rock star.
I went Frank Gifford at wide receiver over Amani Toomer because again, I had Frank Gifford as 1.
Yes.
And so then it was between OBJ and Amani Toomer, and again I looked at comparing them to their contemporaries. OBJ's first, really every year on the Giants, other than the year he was injured, he had over 1,000 yards.
Yes.
He was easily one of the top receivers in the NFL. It wasn't an argument.
No.
Like, you could watch it and you could see how special that man was.
Yes.
Unfortunately, injuries, and he said multiple now, has really, to your point, he's not a Hall of Famer.
He's only 30,
and he would have been a Hall of
Famer.
Famer. And his biggest asset was his speed. And when you have all these lower body injuries, his speed has deteriorated.
And his body control.
Like
he could control his body so well.
OBJ over Amani Toomer.
Yes.
And that was my tiebreaker. Quarterback, I went with someone you didn't even mention.
I already know who you're gonna say. He was up there.
Because I did look at Wyatt Tittle.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, but it's kind of that argument of you know, those really old school, like Norm Van Brocklin, right? Like, okay, Norm Van Brocklin was so long ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't really quarterback how we think of quarterback.
It was a different sport.
I went with Phil Simms.
I know.
I went with Simms over Eli Manning because I think Phil Simms was a better quarterback than Eli Manning.
Okay.
Eli Manning to me is not that good.
He's a third best quarterback in that draft.
Let me preface that. Obviously, he's good.
Yeah.
He made the NFL.
Yeah.
He had great arm strength.
Yeah.
That man's decision making.
Terrible.
Even if you look at the throws he made in that helmet catch. Now, what he did prior to that throw is incredible, and I give him all the props in the world.
Best throw ever was the one in Manningham.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Stop it.
Okay.
The first Super Bowl with the helmet catch with David Tyree.
Yeah.
That throw was dumb.
It was.
You threw the ball. It was a second down play.
Yes.
You chucked the ball in the middle of the field, down the field, with 2 safeties, that could have been picked and the game's over.
Yes.
That is not a smart play.
No.
Now, it worked out, but it was not a good play. The throw to Manningham was phenomenal.
Yes.
That was down this. I mean, you couldn't walk up to him. Just pause. If you had click the controller and click, Adam Sandler movie, pause it. Walk up and put the ball. You could not have placed it better. That is one of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my life.
I agree.
Considering the situation, the distance, all of that. Perfect. I mean, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But to me, Eli Manning's nothing special, man. He was never a top 5 quarterback in the NFL during his career.
No.
You'd have to make arguments for top 10. I think he's had seasons where he was top 10 seasons.
Yes.
But to me, he's not a Hall of Famer because if you're a Hall of Famer, there's 32 teams. Listen to the quarterbacks that automatically, like, that are no-brainers better than him that he played with. Yeah. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Those 4, 100%, there's no one that will argue. And some people may argue it, but they're wrong if they do.
Yeah.
But those 4 there's nobody that would argue that Eli Manning's better than them.
Yes.
Even though he has more Super Bowls than Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. I don't care. They're better quarterbacks. I think Ben Roethlisberger's better. I think Philip Rivers is better. I'm not going to lie to you. I would have taken Matt Ryan over Eli Manning.
I agree.
I think Matt Ryan's a better quarterback.
I agree.
Now, again, there's arguments, but if you take away the Super Bowl MVP argument, what's your argument?
Wait, let me ask you. Flacco? Prime Flacco?
No, because I
Is it at least a thought?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
They're comparable to me.
Okay.
They're both very similar, in my opinion.
I would take Eli. I would take Eli over
because
him.
I would take Eli over Flacco.
Yeah.
Flacco, kind of the same thing. He played out of it. Now, I think he actually played even better than Eli in the postseason run that they had to win the Super Bowl because the plays that he made. Look at his numbers. Like he was good the entire games. Eli Manning had those moments.
Yes.
But anyway, so I went with Phil Simms over Wyatt Tittle because but I do get the Wyatt Tittle one. I'm willing to go with Wyatt Tittle because of who he was, and Phil Simms isn't as shoe-in. But I to me, Gifford over Amani Toomer all day.
I'm willing to go with that because he was one of the original kind of like.
And that was when they started throwing the ball, not to the point that they do today.
No.
But that was when the game did open up more, and it wasn't like the quarterback threw for 80 yards in a game, and that was a career high. No. You know, they were throwing the ball a little bit more.
Okay.
So we'll go to the next one now. So we'll go to Washington because Washington was so difficult to find people because what a dumpster fire for a lot of their offensive players, to be honest. I shouldn't say that. But recently, let me put in the last 25 years, it's been real rough on offensive players to have solid careers for them. Quarterback, I went with Sammy Baugh. Okay. 5 All-Pro teams back in the day. And then the other super obvious one is Art Monk.
Yes.
I think Riggins is a shoe-in at running back. I think he's the best running back. I went with Jerry Smith as a tight end. He made 6 All-Pro teams, 7 Pro Bowl teams back in the day. And then I went with, as a second wide receiver, which, if you want to negate him because he started as a running back, Charlie Taylor.
No, I have no. So we can speed by them because let me listen. Sammy Baugh was the first great quarterback. There's no argument there. Riggins was Riggins. Art Monk is one of the most consistent wide receivers of all time. I had Charles Taylor. The only thing I had different from you, and listen, I don't care about the Redskins enough to like make it. But I had Chris Cooley at tight end.
Okay.
But I'm
I'm
willing to go with your guy.
Okay.
That's fine. Let's move on to the next team.
So Philly or Dallas?
We're going to look. I don't even want to talk about the Cowboys. So we're going. That's the team I can't stand. But we'll go with the Eagles. Okay. Quarterback. I think it's. I mean, look. I mean, we can go with Norman Ben Brocklin. I don't. That's fine with me. I went with Donovan McNabb. I think Donovan McNabb. Especially since we're in this fantasy football world, I think people look at Donovan McNabb's stats, and he's become underrated.
A tough man too.
He was a big, tough guy. He was elusive.
And the Eagles hated it. Remember when the fans hated that he was drafted.
He was,
and Andy Reid was like, "Shut up."
They wanted Ricky Williams. Yeah. Imagine that. So that's interesting in itself. Imagine an NFL fan base booing because they drafted the quarterback as opposed to running back. You want to talk about a difference in things, but McNabb, I mean, one Super Bowl. They led him to one Super Bowl. They went to like 4 straight NFC Championship games.
They went to 4 and only made 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah. But I mean, listen, that means
look at the teams they played though. The Bucks.
Yeah.
With that defense.
That's 4 straight top 4 finishes.
I think basically. The one that they lost was it 2000? Was it 2003 against the Panthers? I think that was the one that got away. That was the one where the NFC Championship game that they look back on and say,
that Panthers defense was nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty.
We're in the fourth quarter.
Listen, Tom Brady does that. Running back is pretty easy with Sean McCoy. Wide receiver, Deshaun Jackson, and old school one, a huge old school guy, Harold Carmichael. Man, Harold Carmichael was like 6'7". Number 17 wore the punter face mask. He was amazing. He got in the Hall of Fame a couple years back, which well deserved. Tight end Zach Ertz.
Yeah. So we were pretty similar. I had McNabb too. I went McNabb. Then Brock's better seasons were on the Rams. So if you were going to pick him, he would have had to be a Ram.
Yeah.
I went with Carmichael. I went with Mike Quick as the second receiver, but I'm okay going with DJ. And really, it's because I don't know with Deshaun Jackson, man. There were sometimes you'd watch him, you'd be like, oh my God. And then sometimes you'd be like, I forgot he was on the team. You know what I mean? And I do want to say this, though. If A.J. Brown plays about 3 more seasons at the level he's played at, I think A.J. Brown is there.
Plays 2 more seasons.
And I do think if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith play together for 3 to 4 more seasons, I think both of those guys, Carmichael's hard to replace because of who he is and what it was. But those 2 guys have good arguments, at least for the number 2. I did go with Ertz for tight end. Running back, I did want to point out a couple guys. So, Shady McCoy, absolutely the most talented. And that guy with the ball in his hands, the reason they call him Shady. Just want to point out Westbrook. Yeah. Not going with him over McCoy, of course, but just one of those guys, again, kind of do-it-all type of running backs, and was on those teams with McNabb.
Yeah.
And then the other guy I wanted to bring up, again, going back real old school, is Van Buren.
Yeah.
But he was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
5 first-team All-Pros. But again, game being so different.
We're talking about 30s or 40s.
Yeah. So you're going back. I mean, there weren't that many teams in the league, but I did want to point him out. But Shady McCoy is it. Although, look, man, if Saquon plays this contract and is healthy with that offensive line, I know they lost Kelsey, but they did replace Kelsey or draft Kelsey's replacement a couple years ago.
Yeah.
If that guy and Kelsey helped them pick that guy, if you recall, he's like, hey, looking at the tape, interviewed him, everything.
Yeah.
That's the guy you should go with. If their offensive line stays healthy, Saquon stays healthy, and they don't let Jalen Hurts steal all the touchdowns from Saquon Barkley, dude, Saquon is going to put up some seasons. The problem is he does have that injury history with legs. That's running back. That's always scary. But so me, Eagles were pretty easy too. So we'll go to Dallas. I know you love Dallas so much.
You can start this.
To me, the 200 actually to me there were 3 slam dunks. Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and Jason Witten. I think those were the 3 slam dunks just over the whole careers as Cowboys. Quarterback, it was between 2 guys, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It was between Troy Aikman or Staubach.
Yeah.
And I went with Aikman.
Okay. Good.
I did go with Aikman. And I don't like him. And it's probably because as an announcer, I can't stand the guy. I also do feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like if he was not on the Cowboys and he was on a different team, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that I would take over him. But it's hard to say because you can only play the hand you're dealt.
Yes.
Not his fault he got drafted there. Not his fault he played there. Not his fault he had one of the best running backs, one of the best wide receivers, one of the best fullbacks, a couple great offensive linemen.
Yeah.
It's not his fault.
Yeah.
And he did what you're supposed to do when you're dealt that hand and you go out there and you win. The second wide receiver, I went with Drew Peterson. original 88. So I went with Pearson as the second wide receiver. Although, look, man, same thing. Is CeeDee Lamb has emerged as a top receiver in the NFL, and if he can keep that, as a top receiver, make some All-Pro teams here in the next few years, he's going to start knocking on that door there. So, I know you got Aikman, Smith, and Urban, and I think you have Pearson too. Judging by what your reaction was, it sounds like you got a different tight end.
So,
or you want to discuss the tight end.
Well, I want to discuss a few things, and I feel sick. I always have to end up defending. So, especially with my age, 42. Man, those Niner Cowboy.
Yeah, I know you hate the Cowboys, but you
no. This is the thing. This is what I mean. Is I hate them, but when you have such a rival like that, you gain so much respect for them, and I have so much respect for these guys. Like the Gen Z will tell you that Troy Aikman was a bum who just was able to hand off to Emmitt Smith.
Yeah,
and I see it on all the message boards, things like that. So you said something interesting. You felt like if he went to another team, he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I feel like if he played on another team, his talents would have shined brighter. Troy Aikman scared the hell out of me as a Niner fan. He was so accurate. He might be one of the top 5 accurate quarterbacks that I've seen since I've been watching football my whole life. The ball was right where, listen, Alvin Harper looked all world on the Cowboys. Then he went to the Bucks, and then all of a sudden he didn't. Troy Aikman was deadly accurate. It's not his fault he only needed to throw for 20, 22 touchdowns a year because the league was different and because Emmitt Smith was Emmitt Smith. Michael Irvin. So, yeah, Troy Aikman's my quarterback. Emmitt Smith is my running back. Oh, God, this is going to be me defending all these guys. Another argument. I can't stand the idea of Emmitt Smith wasn't that good. If Barry Sanders had this line, he would have had blah, 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 blah. There was one Hall of Famer on that offensive line. Larry Allen, who was a top 5 lineman of all time. Now, granted, you can make an argument they might have had 2 Hall of Famers if Eric Williams didn't get in that car crash. But I think the idea of the Cowboys line being what they've grown to be in everybody's mind has been greatly over-exaggerated because we all have fallen in love with the way Barry Sanders ran. When I tell you this,
Barry Sanders was more exciting.
He was more exciting. But in the playoffs, freak excitement. It's yards, it's moving forward, it's cold weather, it's in Emmitt Smith. I tell you, remember against the Giants when he had broken ribs?
Yeah.
And
Emmitt was more of a blue-collar running back. Type of running back. You're going to hand the ball to him, and you're going to get 3-4 yards, and he's going to get some that are going to be 8, 9, 10.
That drive.
Barry Sanders was going to be 0, -1, 0, 0, 3, 2, 25.
Yes.
And that's why
he was going to kill some drives before that long run.
Yeah.
Emmitt was Now, look, we need to just bring him up because Tony Dorsett was amazing.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So
it's not. It's not his fault.
No. And then Drew Pearson.
Yeah.
Now listen, we've kind of touched on this, kind of like what our Eli Manning thing. I think Jason Witten is like grossly exaggerating how good he was. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame, and I don't think he should get in the Hall of Fame.
Well, his argument for the Hall of Fame is going to be the longevity, right? Yeah. So if you're a very good player for a very long time in sports, you tend to make it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because when people look and see, man, this guy played for 15 years, and for 15 years he was 80 catches, as a tight end, 80 catches, 800 to 900 yards, 6 to 9 touchdowns. Yeah. Every year he was there, and he was productive. And you didn't have to worry about that position for your team for a decade and a half.
That's the ideal draft pick.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So I'll say this.
Again, I don't think he's the greatest tight end. He's not in that conversation. I don't even think he would tell you that. No. And he was a terrible announcer, and that lasted real
He's
short.
Good high school coach, though.
Yeah, well, the knowledge of football.
He's got like 2.
He just doesn't necessarily articulate it.
They're balling out, but
as well.
So listen, I'm willing to. I'm not willing to not say he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not a Hall of Famer, but I'm willing to put him on here. But I just want to say this, and again, this matches up with the fact I have so much respect. for those, Jay Novacek was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Novacek was amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because if you sparse these guys out and put them, I'm telling you, I think of Troy Aikman. Now, look, Troy Aikman doesn't have the rings he has if he goes on a different team.
Of course, none of them do.
But his stats and the way people look at him is probably higher.
Right.
Michael Irvin, to me, is the 5th or 6th best receiver of all time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's just that his stats aren't what, but
I think his peak was something.
And he was the leader on that team, even though he was probably the biggest knucklehead.
He was also the problem child.
Yeah,
combination.
He's the interesting combination. But I had Jay Novacek, but I don't really care about the Cowboys. I don't want to talk about them, so we can go away.
I do think look, Novacek was number 2 on my list, and again, to me, it was really in terms of the accolades, they were pretty similar. Witten actually, believe it or not, had more Pro Bowls, and then the longevity. He was there long. Now, if you switch eras for them, we may be having the opposite conversation. Because the game is different. Yeah. But again, when push comes to shove, you look at the comparison between the two when they are compared to their contemporaries. Yeah. And that to me is where I went with Witten. So we'll go to the NFC North. Yes. So what team do you want to start with? Another where there's a couple of these teams that have actually all of them pretty much have been around for 1,000 years.
We'll start off this time with. We're gonna do the Packers last. I can't stand the Packers either. So let's start with the Vikings.
Okay. Vikings were pretty simple for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was. I think I do believe we're going to be pretty much in agreement on everything. I'm starting this one off, right?
Yeah.
So QB Franz Harkington. Before Dan Marino, he was the all-time leader in yards. Yeah. He was. Basically, he was kind of Russell Wilson before Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But better.
Yeah.
Come on, man, running back 80, like Adrian Peterson. Come on.
All day.
Yeah. Mawson Carter. Now, tight end, and I'm willing to. I'm willing to be flexible on this because I honestly I didn't pick one. I was cool with either going with Steve Jordan or Kyle Rudolph.
Cool. So I had all the ones you said. I went with Jordan.
Okay. And I'm fine
and
with
again,
that.
Comparing contemporaries.
Yeah.
Kyle Rudolph, no Pro Bowls. Just, his numbers are better, but the game was so different.
Yeah.
Franz Harkington was there's not even a second choice.
No.
AP, top 10 running back of all time, in my opinion. Yeah. Randy Moss is top 5 wide receiver of all time.
Yeah.
Chris Carter is a Hall of Famer, wherever you want to put him on your top list. But he was, Minnesota was a quick easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to do Green Bay last? So I'll start. I'll go with Chicago.
Okay,
I'll go Chicago. So Sid Luckman, quarterback. Walter Payton at running back.
Yeah.
Mike Ditka, tight end.
Yes.
Wide receivers was awfully difficult.
It was
now
interesting.
DJ Moore, if they get Caleb Williams and he stays, is going to make this list probably in another 2 years. Maybe even 1 year, depending on the year he has. I went with Willie Gault because he was the number 1 receiver on the Bears in the 80s when they won. And the second one, I went with Brandon Marshall. But I am open to listening because the Bears have had Alshon Jeffrey could be on there.
Yeah.
He played a little longer than Marshall did too.
Yeah.
But that's who I went. I'm sure the second receivers, if you have a difference, is going to be the one that we're different.
So the 3 spots were locked in: QB, running back, tight end. Not even really worth discussing. Come on. Wide receiver, I thought Gold was a lock too. I went Willie Gold.
Yeah.
Willie Gold was a speed receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I think he averaged like 17, 18 yards a catch.
Yeah.
Really good for the 80s. And I went with Alshon Jeffers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even Jeffries, excuse me. I didn't even mention. I thought of Marshall, but I didn't feel like he played for the Bears long enough. It's like I can see if he had like absolute killer seasons during that.
Well, no one has a killer season receiving on the Bears.
No one does. Like he was.
I almost went with Devin Hester, man, just to get him on the team, because of the kicker.
My third receiver was Curtis Conway.
Yeah, Curtis Conway was my third.
But I went with Alshon Jeffers and
Jeffries.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
and I went with Willie.
I'll go with Alshon. That's fine. Yeah, because he played longer.
But
I
in
think
all
Brandon
fairness, I
Marshall's
will
a better
say Brandon
receiver.
Marshall's a better overall receiver.
All right.
I can't believe he never made the playoffs, man.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, Cutler wasn't a terrible quarterback.
No,
he had good arm strength. It was everything else.
He was his
mentality.
He was Jeff George 2K.
Yeah,
because he was Jeff George.
He had a gun, man.
Yeah.
I remember the Broncos drafted him. I'm like, dude, this guy has the arm. Like, and Mike Shanahan literally drafted him because he saw John Elway.
Yeah,
he saw a big, strong-armed quarterback that. Well, he wasn't nearly as mobile as Elway, but big, strong-armed quarterback that could chuck the ball.
Yeah.
And just, he didn't work out. Okay, so you want Green Bay last, so go ahead and start with Detroit.
All right, so...
which, this one to me is pretty simple, too, honestly.
Quarterback, I went with, look, okay, let's go with the obvious ones, like I said.
Yeah.
I believe that the running back and the two receivers are obvious. Barry Sanders, receivers, Megatron, and Herman Moore.
Sure over Sims?
Huh?
Sure over Sims? That was
the first number
20,
right?
Joke.
I know.
That was a joke.
But Megatron.
Who'd you say as a wide receiver?
Calvin Johnson and Herman Moore.
Oh, okay.
Herman Moore is one of those guys who's going to get lost in the 90s.
Yeah.
He had a couple of years over 100 catches. He was about 6'4", 215.
Yeah.
I mean, big, strong hand receiver. So I say Herman Moore, Megatron, Barry Sanders. Tied in, I went with Charlie Sanders. Mm-hmm. And this is where we might differ, man. Mm-hmm. QB, I went with Bobby Lane.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I went with Sanders.
Uh-huh.
Megatron to me,
yeah,
is a top 5 receiver all time.
I agree.
That man's speed and
Let's
size.
pause for a second. I need to hear your top 5.
That man's size. Oh man, you're dude, I might rattle off more than 5 because we're talking about. I mean, Jerry Rice is a GOAT.
Yeah.
Randy Moss has to be in there, and Calvin Johnson has to be in there. Those are probably my top 3, to be honest. T.O.
Okay. So far, this just is. So far, we're all matched now.
Okay.
Let's see the 5th.
The 5th. Oof. See, this is where I gotta pick. Those 4 to me are it.
I agree.
Man, you know what? If AB didn't go crazy, I probably would have put him on there because that dude was insane.
I can't be mad at you on that.
But God, and Julio, same thing, man. He just fell off a cliff, bro. Oh man, I have to think about it.
All right, that's okay. Well, so it's okay.
But those 4 I went with. Detroit, I mean, they have 2 quarterbacks.
Yes.
That you could pick from.
Yes.
And it's Bobby Lane and Matt Stafford.
Yes.
And really comes down to, again, the eras are so different. Mm-hmm. So Matt Stafford was like the quickest to 10,000 yards, 20,000 yards, 30,000. Like his 30 in the league threw for like 5,000 yards, like 41 touchdowns.
Yeah, because they were always losing. But
yeah. No, they made the playoffs that year.
No, but they
He also, I mean, granted, he also had Megatron to throw to, but Matt Stafford is not a bad quarterback.
No, I don't.
He's a very good quarterback.
Yeah.
But I did go with Lane too.
Yeah.
And again, it's because you compare him to contemporaries. Now, I do think because Matt Stafford was on Detroit, that hurt some of his accolades. Like he didn't make a Pro Bowl that year. He threw for 5,000 yards.
No. Okay. Thank you.
No. But he threw for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and did not make the Pro Bowl.
That's crazy.
That is insane.
That is insane.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
So, cool. So, we're matched up on Detroit. That's pretty easy. So, we'll go to Green Bay. Uh-huh. Now, Green Bay was very, very interesting because they have such a long history, and they've been good forever.
Yeah.
They're never not good.
Yeah.
So, to give you, Brett Favre took over in 1992. I'm 35, okay? They had one starting quarterback from 87 to 92, and I'm blanking on his name right now.
Dom Mikowski.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was some name
the
that
Magic
I
Man.
wasn't going to remember.
Yeah.
I'm 35.
Yes.
They've had 4 starting quarterbacks other than spot starters for injuries.
Yeah.
Because then Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love. And Jordan Love has only had 1 year. So think about that for a second. My first 33 years of life, they had 3 starting quarterbacks.
That's amazing.
And 2 are first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to leave quarterback for I'll just go to quarterback first.
Okay.
So really the 3 quarterbacks you could choose from are Rodgers, Favre, and Starr.
Yes.
Right. I went with Aaron Rodgers Bart Starr has 2 Super Bowls to the 1 and the 1.
Mm-hmm.
Favre has 2 Super Bowl appearances. Rodgers has 2.
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers is like 4 MVPs, man. You know, the All Pros. Come on, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, so I went with Rodgers. Wide receiver was difficult, man. They've had some good wide receivers. I went with James Lofton.
Okay.
And I went with Don Hudson, the first wide receiver, or known as the first wide receiver.
Yeah.
I went with Jim Taylor, running back.
Okay.
And I went with, I had to look, man, tight ends, I had to look too, man. I went with Kaufman, the tight end.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're ending this off, I think, with a pretty good conversation.
Yeah. I think the only one we probably have together is Rodgers. And maybe one of the receivers.
So, I thought the receivers were the easiest ones.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went with Driver and Adams?
No, Don Hudson and Sterling Sharp.
Okay. So
to me, that was easy.
So I was between, Hudson was a no-brainer to me because of who he was and what he did for the NFL.
Yeah.
Sterling Sharp was there, but man, hit that injury, dude.
Go back and look at his stats.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not even looking at stats because I do think, and Shannon Sharp even says that Shannon Sharp is a top 5 tight end of all time, in my opinion.
Yes.
And he said, my brother's better than me.
He was.
I know that. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, he even said,
yeah,
my brother was better than me. I'm okay to go to Sharp because, man, I had him on there and I was like, dude, but he only played like 5 years, you know? And that's what killed me. And it's not his fault. I mean, he got injured. It's not like he declined.
Yeah.
But I'm okay going with Sharp on that one. But I mean, I was between them. I mean, I looked at Devontae Adams like, dude, the guy had like almost 90 touchdowns as a Packer, and he's not even on the list. That's how good the receivers are.
Yeah.
And then their all-time leading receivers, Donald Driver, and Donald Driver made like 1 Pro Bowl, I think, in his career.
He was just so
Antonio
consistent.
Freeman had a couple years. I mean, Brett Favre cycled through receivers where Rodgers had 1.
Yeah, Robert Brooks for a while.
Yeah, and that's where to me, like, Devontae Adams was in the conversation because, man, the last 6 years he had on the Packers, man, he was a Pro Bowl, first or second team All-Pro.
Yeah. Greg Jennings was number 1 for a long time.
Yeah, Greg Jennings was his number 1 for a while, and carried over to
I still
Jordan
thought
Nelson.
I still thought Hudson and Sharp. Like that to me was, I picked A-Rod.
Yeah.
But I was really, man, I was going back and forth in that one.
Between
just
him
because if Favre,
Yeah.
so the 2 scariest opponents for me as a Niner fan. Before you get to, because Patrick Mahomes is just
you're talking about the 90s.
But before you get to that, Favre and Emmett were just, because it was always going to be a big game.
Mm-hmm.
And Favre, I mean, he might throw like 3 interceptions, but if he doesn't, it's like you can't stop him.
Mm-hmm. But he stopped himself.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't pick him, because there was too many games where
Aaron Rodgers
he just went bonehead.
And Aaron Rodgers, dude, look at it. Look at the amount of interceptions Aaron Rodgers throws. Remember, he had that streak of how many throws in a row in Green Bay where he didn't throw an interception.
So I'm not. You know why I'm not as impressed with that?
That's pretty incredible. Still,
come on, man,
to not throw one.
No. But the issue, because with A-Rod, is this: because the Niners and Packers play the playoffs almost every year. Very recently.
He chokes in the playoffs. I mean, I'm not going to argue that.
But you look at it and you know why he doesn't throw interceptions, because he just got to a point where he just stopped taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, like, it's one of the things I do appreciate about Josh Allen. Like, sometimes you just gotta just let it rip.
But man, to me, Brett Favre was on the other side of that.
Oh, he was on the way other side. That's a whole different story.
You got to me, I would rather have a quarterback err on not taking them versus taking too many. Because if you're not taking them, the worst case is you're punting. If you're taking them, you're giving the team the ball.
Well, I'd rather somebody be in the middle. Like, don't be Brett Favre.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, dude, Aaron Rodgers makes some throws. Dude, man,
I know. No,
Brett Favre has a better just straight arm, but Aaron Rodgers is more accurate.
I agree. It's like it's more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, he's more accurate.
He's like, he plays the quarterback.
He makes some awkward looking throws too, though.
Like, A-Rod plays the quarterback position, and like, it looks beautiful.
Right.
Like, so I picked A-Rod, Now, running back was hard for me.
Yeah, running back
just
was
because
hard. There was a lot of guys. I almost went Ahman Green.
I
almost went Ahman Green.
I was leaning towards Ahman Green, but I was leaning between Ahman Green, and I'm not saying he was really a top choice, but I just want to bring him up because I thought he was a heck of a player. Edgar Bennett, Edgerrin Bennett, not Edgerrin Bennett, Edgar Bennett. Excuse me, he went between tailback and fullback, very versatile guy. Didn't have a chance, but I just thought about him when I was thinking about it. But Jim Taylor and then Paul Hornig.
Yeah, Paul Hornig on there too.
I'm willing to, because I just kind of feel like they're all
interchangeable.
I'm willing to go with Jim Taylor.
Okay.
But I don't see how Sterling Sharp is not on this list.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay switching to Sharp.
So yeah.
Again, his peak is
in 5 years.
It's just that that's what I mean. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was really like, if you look at his good years, it was like 4 years where it was like
that's 5. That's 5.
And who's your tight end? Who you got at tight end?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Chmura.
Huh?
Mark Chmura.
Oh.
Mark Chmura.
Yeah.
Now I think there's some things that happened towards the end of his career where people probably think about that more than his playing career. But he was amazing.
Yeah.
He was a big West Coast tight end, good blocker. I went with Chmura, but I think honestly everybody aside from Hudson and Sharp, I'm okay with. I think they're all interchangeable. I felt like the receivers were no-brainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, there you have it. So that takes us to the end of the second episode. Thank you for staying tuned with us. Next time we're going to go over the AFC defensive players.
Yes.
And how we're going to do this is we're going to do kind of the same thing, but the 5 defensive positions are going to be defensive interior line, edge rusher, off-ball, linebacker or inside linebacker, cornerback, and safety. So we're picking one from each franchise for the AFC. That's going to be next time for episode 3. Thank you for staying with us. We hope to see you soon.